Now, he is one of the most shocking and controversial figures on social media, but you might not even have heard of him. We're talking about Andrew Tate, whose recent arrest has made headlines and left many parents worried about his toxic influence. The self-declared king of toxic masculinity, Andrew Tate, first found fame in 2016 on the UK version of Big Brother. Since then, the former kickboxer has built up a huge following of teenage boys and men on social media, with his shocking videos that some say depict misogynistic views and encourage violence against women.
I think the most dangerous men on earth are the weak men.
A man can only cheat if he loves someone else.
What I'm saying is good for the world.
All filmed against a backdrop of luxury cars and private jets. And despite being banned from TikTok, Instagram and Facebook, he's still one of the most Googled men in the world, with over 11 billion views across social media. Last week, Andrew Tate was back in the headlines following a Twitter row with climate change activist Greta Thunberg. And then, just a day later, news broke that he'd been arrested in Romania as part of an investigation into rape and human trafficking. Well, joining me in the studio, Michael Conroy, founder of Men at Work. They go into schools to teach pupils about not using sexism and violent language against women. And mum of four, Ulrika Johnson. I want to put this now, he's been off my radar, this guy. I actually wasn't aware of him, Ulrika. I mean, you've got a young son who's a teenager. Were you aware of this guy at all?
Yes, I was aware of him. He has been sort of on the periphery. A lot of the people that I follow are feminists on my social media platforms. And so there would be little conversations and things coming up about him. And I completely dismissed him because it's madness what he's saying. It's crazy stuff. And because I know it's not right and it's not true, I completely ignored it and then forgot that I have a 14-year-old impressionable son.
Well, this is it, isn't it? And that's what he feeds on, and that's who we have to be on our guard about. But then the thing is, as a parent, how do you do that?
I think we spent a lot of time looking after our daughters, protecting our daughters, telling our daughters how to defend themselves. And somehow we've kind of sidelined our young men, and we've kind of almost forgotten. We've presumed that they will be okay. Young men and young girls are being flooded by all sorts of videos and commentaries and truths via sort of TikTok, Instagram or whatever else. I mean, I'm amazed by some of the facts my son tells me on an almost daily basis.
So, Michael, what Ulrika was saying there, it's really struck a chord. And I know that you do an awful lot of work trying to combat this in schools. Yep. How dangerous is this character?
Like many other people, he had gone under my radar, which is actually quite strange because I'm in this business of working with teachers, working with youth workers, social workers who work every day with boys and young men. But I think he peaked around August and there was a real spike in interest around him. And I was on holiday with my kids and my nephews and they started talking about him. And I said, who is this guy? And I felt, you know, like an elderly man, not knowing what the internet was. And we looked at some of the videos and I realised his following, which was in the millions, tens of millions.
I mean, how worried should we be as parents about this? Because he's not the only one, presumably.
No. I think that's a really important point about Andrew Tate is he's a profoundly ordinary chap, to be honest. Nothing he says is new. Nothing he says is interesting. Nothing he says is the product of real research. They're very much recycled comments from decades and centuries even.
How do you combat this as a parent when you know, as we've said and Ulrika said very well, that we weren't aware that this was going on? How do we become more aware? How do we make sure that we're talking to our children and making sure that they get the right messages? I
think it's part of a much bigger conversation about the internet and social media. Yeah. And for parents and carers and aunts and uncles and whoever has a role in bringing up young people and teachers as well, to be consciously interested in what it is that their young people are watching, to put time aside and to talk about it. It can seem complicated and a never-ending journey. However, without that, we basically say, here's the internet, it will help bring you up. And we can't do that. No,
it's not a babysitter, is it? It's not a substitute for a parent. No. He says he doesn't hate women. And he says that his videos are taken out of context.
Yeah.
That's his sort of defence.
Yeah, I've seen lots of his videos and they are not taken out of context. His particular danger, even though I think he's a profoundly ordinary person, a man in that respect...
That actually is in a way more chilling.
It is, rather. He's not saying anything exceptional at all. So whilst we do need to talk about him, at the same time we need to realise how unexceptional he is and how kind of run-of-the-mill sexism is nothing new.
No, it isn't. And I mean, that's the kind of thing that I know you fight against, Ulrika, too. That sort of... It's chilling, isn't it, that he's perceived as sort of almost an ordinary person? Because that makes it more scary, in a way.
These young boys at school, you know, that my son comes across and who are his friends, they somehow get a sense of belonging belonging to something as part of what Andrew Tate spouts. It gives them a feeling, almost like a gang feeling, or they're part of a new movement. And I think that's the thing that worries me, is that they sense that they are very much part of something new. Like you say, this is nothing new at all, but for them, this is something new.
Yeah, that's a really good point, isn't it?
That's a really good point, absolutely. I mean, we've seen these things. We're in our 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s and beyond, and we can look back at people like this. Yeah. But as Ulrika rightly says, for 13, 14, 15-year-old boy, this is new, and it's very powerful when you come across it. And since September, I've trained maybe 600 teachers or youth workers in mixed groups, and in every single one his name has cropped up. Now that's a new step. That wasn't the case before summer. So therefore, as unpleasant as it is to talk about this chap and his beliefs, it's really important that we do. And I think in schools particularly, there's a lack of confidence in having those conversations, but I think we run the risk of trying to shut down the legitimate thinking and curiosity of young men, and we need to find whatever we can do to create spaces to shine a light on the ideas and to show how absurd they are and how wrong.
Absolutely.
Create the space.
Michael, keep doing what you're doing, because it's really, really so important. And you're right, we do wish we weren't talking about this individual. I have many words for him, but I'd be taken off the air if I said any of them. Ulrika, thank you for joining us this morning. Really appreciate it. Thank you so, so much.